The wind howled across the frozen plains of Echelon 6. Ice covered everything. Old metal towers, broken satellite dishes, and long-abandoned mining rigs. The sky was a pale gray, and the sun was barely visible through thick clouds. Commander James Carter stood on the platform outside the research outpost, scanning the horizon. His breath fogged in the cold. He pulled his coat tighter and stepped inside. "Status?" he asked. Lena, the youngest scientist in the group, looked up from her console. "Systems are stable. No movement on the long-range scanners." James nodded. "Keep monitoring. This place may be dead, but I've seen how fast that can change." The outpost was quiet. There were only 5 people here: Carter, Lena, Dr. Abram, the lead scientist, and 2 technicians. They were here to study old mining tech left behind by Earth's first settlers. No one expected trouble. No one ever came here. But Carter didn't trust silence. He moved through the metal corridors of the base. Everything smelled of rust and cold. Pipes groaned in the walls. The power core hummed low, just enough to keep them alive. At the comm station, Technician Miro was frowning. "Commander," he said, "I'm getting static on the Earth line again. Signal's weak." "Reboot it. Try boosting through the relay tower," Carter said. "I already did. It's like something's blocking it." Carter didn't like that. An hour later, Carter and Lena were outside, checking equipment near the ridge. She pointed at her handheld scanner. "I'm picking up an energy spike." "What kind of spike?" Carter asked. "I don't know. It's faint. Could be a power leak from one of the old mining shafts. But it's irregular." Carter stared into the distance. The wind was picking up. Snow drifted across the ground. Something felt wrong. Back at the outpost, Miro called in. "We've lost contact with Scout Team 3. Carter froze. "Say that again." "They were checking the south sector. Their signal just vanished." Lena looked at Carter. "You think something happened to them?" Carter didn't answer right away. He looked out toward the south. "We don't jump to conclusions, but we stay alert. Lock down the outpost. Nobody goes out alone." As night fell, the outpost lights flickered. The wind outside roared louder than before. Inside, the team moved quietly, their footsteps echoing on metal floors. Something was out there, and it was getting closer. The next morning, the wind had stopped. Everything outside was still too still. Commander James Carter stood by the main window of the outpost, looking out over the ice. The snow was smooth, untouched. No tracks, no movement, only silence. Inside, the others worked quietly. Dr. Abram was reviewing maps of the mining tunnels. Lena was checking the scanners again. Miro was still trying to restore full communication with Earth. "Any word from Scout Team 3? Carter asked. Miro shook his head. "Still nothing. It's like they were erased." Carter turned to Lena. "What about that energy spike from yesterday?" She nodded slowly. "It's stronger now, and it's moving." "Moving?" Carter stepped closer. "It's coming from the sky," she said. Suddenly the lights flickered. A low hum passed through the floor. Everyone froze. "Did you feel that?" Abram asked. Before anyone could answer, a loud alarm echoed through the base. "Impact warning," Miro shouted. "Something is entering the atmosphere. Fast." Carter rushed to the window. In the sky above the horizon, a fireball was streaking down, growing larger by the second. "Brace for impact," he yelled. The ground shook violently as the object crashed into the ice, sending a massive wave of snow and smoke into the air. The shock wave rattled the walls of the outpost. Alarms blared. Lights dimmed. Equipment fell from shelves. Then silence again. Lena spoke first. "It landed 3 kilometers from here." "What was it?" Abram asked. Carter narrowed his eyes. "We're going to find out." An hour later, Carter, Lena, and one of the techs, Ben, rode a snow crawler toward the crash site. The wind had picked up again, blowing fine ice across the ground. As they got closer, a massive crater came into view. Inside it was something strange. Dark metal, sharp angles, glowing veins of red light. It didn't look human. It didn't even look like a ship. It looked like a wound in the ground. Carter stepped closer, scanning the wreck. "Lena, are you getting this?" She nodded, recording everything. "Sis alien." "Definitely." The metal hissed and steamed. Strange symbols glowed along its surface. As they moved around the wreck, Carter spotted something that made him stop. A figure. It was tall, humanoid in shape, but wrong. Its body sleek and black, with long limbs and no face. It stood still, like it was waiting. "Shiz!" Then it moved. "Back to the crawler," Carter shouted. "Shiz!" The figure raised its arm. A sharp, bright beam shot past them, cutting through the ice. "Shiz!" Ben slipped and fell. Carter turned, grabbed him, and dragged him back. "Shiz!" They jumped into the crawler and slammed the hatch shut. "Go, now!" Carter yelled. The crawler sped back to the outpost, the figure disappearing into the snow behind them. Back at base, the team gathered in the control room. Carter stood in front of them, breathing hard. "That was no meteor. It's an alien ship, and it's not empty." "What do we do?" Lena asked, voice shaking. "We prepare," Carter said. "We're not alone anymore, and whatever's out there, it's not friendly." Outside, the wind screamed against the walls, and far in the distance, the red glow of the crashed ship still burned through the snow. The outpost was on full lockdown. Metal shutters sealed the windows. Power systems were set to high alert. The cold lights inside flickered softly, casting long shadows in the halls. Commander James Carter paced in the control room. The others watched the screens nervously. The alien ship still glowed red on the satellite feed. Nothing had moved since their return. At least, not that they could see. But Carter didn't believe in luck. Something was coming. "Any new readings?" he asked. Lena shook her head. "It's quiet. Too quiet." "Doctor." Abrams sat with his arms crossed. "I don't like this. We shouldn't be here anymore. This isn't a research mission anymore. It's survival." Carter nodded. "Agreed. But there's nowhere to run. Comms are down. We're cut off." Just then, the lights went out. For a second, everything was black. Then the main screen flickered to life. A strange shifting pattern of red and black filled the display. A voice, cold and mechanical, came through the speakers. It wasn't speaking any known language, but then, as if something adjusted, the words became clear. "We are the Exarelon. Your presence is noted. You will surrender this outpost, or be erased." The crew stared at the screen. A face appeared, if it could be called that. It was smooth and featureless, more like a mask than a face. Its voice was steady, emotionless. "I am Entity Varkon, Commander of the Grief. You are trespassing on a forgotten zone. You will be given 1 cycle to comply." Then the screen went dark again. The lights returned. No one spoke for a moment. Miro was the first to break the silence. What was that?" "A warning," Carter said. "Or a promise." Abrams stood up. "We have to leave. Now, find a way out. Anything." Carter shook his head. "There's no time, and no way. We have to defend ourselves." They spent the next few hours preparing. Ben and Miro reinforced the main entrance with metal plates. Lena and Abram checked the emergency power cells and activated old drone defenses left behind by the original miners. Carter walked alone down to the storage bay. There, covered in dust and frost, was a weapons locker. He opened it slowly. Inside were 2 pulse rifles and a set of old combat armor. He stared at it for a long time before taking the armor out and setting it on the table. It had been years since he'd worn it. Since the last war. Back in the control room, Lena pulled up an old map of the colony. Her eyes widened. "Commander," she called out. "Look at this." He came over. "This section here," she said, pointing. "It's not just a mine, it's something else." It was sealed off after the first mining phase. The logs mention a buried structure with unknown tech. Carter narrowed his eyes. "You think that's what they're here for?" "I don't think this was a random landing," Lena said. "They came for something." Before Carter could respond, The alarm sounded again. Movement. Miro shouted. They're coming. On the screen dozens of shapes appeared, moving fast across the snow toward the outpost. Drones. Tall, thin, fast, armed. Carter grabbed the pulse rifle. Positions now. This isn't just about surviving. This is about stopping them from getting what they came for. The crew scrambled into place. Carter stood at the entrance, watching the snow blur into white outside. And then the first shot was fired. The outpost walls shook as the first wave of alien drones attacked. Flashes of light lit up the night outside. Red lasers cut through the snow. The defense turrets on the roof fired back, striking some drones, but more kept coming. Inside, Carter and his team worked quickly. The sound of metal scraping and distant explosions filled the air. "We can't hold them off for long," Miro shouted from the control room. "Fall back to the lower level," Carter ordered. "Seal the entrance. We're heading underground." He grabbed his rifle and led the way down a narrow stairwell to the storage tunnels beneath the outpost. The air grew colder, the walls frosted and damp. Pipes ran along the ceiling, some leaking steam. Lena carried a portable scanner. She kept checking the readings as they moved. "We're getting close," she said. "The buried structure is about 100 meters east of the old shaft." "What kind of structure?" Abram asked, breathing hard. "I don't know, but the energy signature is not human. It's still active." They reached the sealed mining door. Rust covered the edges. Carter placed his hand on the panel and keyed in an override. The door groaned and slid open, revealing a dark tunnel. As they stepped inside, the floor turned from steel to stone. Strange markings appeared along the walls, glowing faintly, like veins of light. Lena stopped. "Commander, this is Exaralon Tech." Carter's eyes moved across the glowing walls. "This was here long before we ever came to this moon." At the end of the tunnel, the group entered a large circular chamber. In the center stood a tall structure, metallic, covered in alien symbols, humming with low energy. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. "This is what they're after," Lena whispered. "This could be a signal core." Abram stepped forward. "It's designed to transmit over long distances, maybe across star systems, or control machines," Carter said. "Like their drones. If we can reprogram it," Lena added, "we might be able to shut Varkon down, stop his entire network." Carter looked around. "Then we make our stand here." The team set up camp in the chamber. Miro and Ben reinforced the tunnel entrance with metal braces. Lena and Abram worked on accessing the signal core's control panel. Hours passed. Outside, the sound of battle faded. Then came silence. Carter sat alone at the edge of the chamber, staring at the old armor resting beside him. He hadn't worn it since the last war. He remembered the faces of those he'd lost. His squad, his brother, his daughter. Lena walked over and sat beside him. "You okay?" Carter nodded slowly. "I've seen enough death. I came here to leave it behind." She looked at him. "But you didn't. You stayed to protect us." He didn't answer right away. No one else was going to. Lena smiled faintly. "Well, I'm glad you did." Just then, Abram called out, "We're in. The core's system is unlocking." The chamber lit up. The walls pulsed brighter. On the screen, strange alien symbols began to shift, turning into human-readable code. Lena stared in disbelief. "This thing can disrupt any AI in range. We can use it to shut Varkon down, but only if someone stays to activate it manually." Carter stood and picked up his armor. "Then we make sure it works. And when the time comes, I'll be the one to stay." "No," Lena said, her voice trembling. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," he replied quietly. "I've made peace with it." The team prepared for the final fight. Above them, on the surface, Varkon's forces gathered, and time was running out. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. Commander James Carter stood with Lena, Ben, and Miro at the entrance of the underground chamber. The alien signal core behind them pulsed gently, waiting to be used. "If we damage the alien ship," Carter said, We can weaken its control over the drones. Then we use the signal core to shut everything down." Ben looked nervous. "And we're just walking into that ship." Carter checked his weapon. "Not walking, sneaking." Miro handed out small EMP charges. "These will short the internal systems if placed near the central core." Lena looked at Carter. "Be careful. That ship isn't just metal, it's alive." Carter gave a quick nod. "We move fast, stay quiet, and hit hard. Let's go." The team used a side path through the old mining tunnels to avoid the surface drones. The tunnels were dark and cracked, full of ice and fallen rock. They moved quickly, weapons ready, senses sharp. After nearly an hour, they reached a surface hatch a few hundred meters from the crashed alien ship. The Grieve. It looked even bigger, up close. A dark mountain of jagged metal and glowing red lines. Parts of it were broken from the crash, but it still thrummed with power. They entered through a torn opening on the side. Inside, the air was warm and dry. The walls were smooth, black and pulsing like veins. Strange sounds echoed through the halls, clicking, humming, distant footsteps. "This place is alive," Ben whispered. Carter raised his hand. "Keep moving." They reached the core chamber. In the center a massive sphere floated, surrounded by energy arcs. This was the ship's brain. Miro began planting the charges. Suddenly a voice filled the chamber. "You are inside me now." The lights dimmed. Red beams shot from the walls. 3 drone guards dropped from above, landing with metallic thuds. "Cover him," Carter shouted. Gunfire echoed through the chamber. Carter and Lena shot at the drones while Miro kept working. Sparks flew as one drone fell, then another. The third lunged at Carter, pinning him to the wall. He grunted and fired at point-blank range. The drone collapsed. Miro gave a thumbs up. "Charges set." "Joe," Carter yelled. They ran out as the charges exploded behind them. The ship groaned. The lights flickered. The floor tilted as parts of the ship shut down. But then, from the shadows a tall figure stepped into the corridor. Entity Varkun. He was massive, taller than a man, half machine, half shadow. His voice came not from his mouth, but from every wall. "You resist with old tools. You are nothing. I have consumed worlds." Lena stepped forward, shaking but firm. "Not this one." They opened fire. Varkun staggered, but didn't fall. He raised his arm and sent a pulse of energy that knocked Ben to the ground. Carter turned to Lena. "Get out. Get back to the signal core. Now." Lena hesitated. "Not without you." "Go." She nodded and ran, pulling Ben with her. Carter faced Varkun alone. The alien moved closer, slow and sure. "You cannot stop me." Carter narrowed his eyes. "Watch me." He threw a final charge, blasting a hole in the wall, and escaped through the smoke. Back at the underground chamber, Lena and Miro returned, dragging Ben behind them. "Where's Carter?" Abram asked. "He's buying us time," Lena said, out of breath. "The ship is damaged. Now we finish it." She powered up the alien core. Symbols swirled on the screen. The chamber shook as the signal began to rise. Outside, the sky turned red. Varkun was coming. Inside, Carter was already waiting. The ground trembled. Far above the frozen tunnels, the alien ship, the Grieve, groaned under its own weight. Its hull glowed faintly, flickering like a dying star. Smoke drifted into the gray sky, but it wasn't dead yet. Inside the underground chamber, Lena stared at the glowing core. Streams of alien code flashed across the screen. "It's working," she said. "The core is ready to send the shutdown signal. But the signal must be triggered from the control panel manually." Dr. Abram reminded her. "Someone has to stay here." Everyone in the room turned quiet. Ben, still bruised from the fight at the ship, tried to stand. "I'll do it." "No." Carter's voice cut through as he entered the chamber. He was limping, his armor scorched but alive. Lena ran to him. "James, you made it." He gave a small nod. "Barely." Then he looked at the signal core. Get the others out. I'll trigger the pulse myself. No, Lena said firmly. We'll find another way. There is no other way. Carter said. This ends now. If we wait, he'll reach us, and no one gets out. Silence followed. The walls around them rumbled. Above, heavy footsteps echoed through the old mining tunnels. Varkan was coming. Carter looked around the room one last time. Lena, you're the smartest person I've ever served with. Make sure this place stays buried. Don't let them take it. Instead, Lena's eyes filled with tears. But she nodded. Carter turned to the others. Get to the crawler. Now. Lena, Ben, Miro, and Dr. Abram climbed into the snow crawler parked at the lower exit. As it pulled away, Lena looked back. Carter stood alone in the chamber, facing the ancient machine. He placed both hands on the control panel. The screen lit up. Above him, the roof cracked. Varkan stepped into the chamber, towering over Carter. Sparks flew from his damaged limbs. His red eyes glowed in the dim light. You think one man can stop the Exaralon? Varkan growled. Carter didn't flinch. I don't need to stop them all. Just you. He slammed the activation switch. A burst of white light filled the chamber. A high-pitched sound echoed through the tunnels. The walls cracked. The signal pulsed outward like a wave. Varkan let out a distorted scream as his body froze mid-step, the red glow in his eyes fading. Above ground, the remaining drones collapsed into the snow. Lifeless, the alien ship's lights flickered once, then went dark. The crawler sped across the ice fields. As the ground behind them began to cave in, dust and debris shot into the air. The old colony cracked and sank into itself. From the ridge, Lena watched as the last part of the outpost vanished into a frozen crater. James Carter was gone. He had saved them all. The sky over Echelon 6 was quiet now. No red lights, no drones, no sound of war. Just cold wind moving gently over ice and rock. The snow crawler rolled slowly across the empty field, carrying Lena, Ben, Miro, and Dr. Abram. The vehicle's lights cut through the early morning fog. They were heading toward the backup relay tower, the only chance to reach Earth. Inside the crawler, no one spoke for a long time. Lena sat by the window staring out. She couldn't stop thinking about James Carter. His voice, his calm strength, the way he stayed behind without fear. He had given everything so they could live. Finally, Miro broke the silence. The drones, they're all down. It's over. Lena shook her head softly. It's not over, not really. This was just the beginning. Ben looked up from the controls. You think they'll come back? She nodded. Varkan may be gone, but others like him, they're still out there. And now they know we're here. They reached the tower just after sunrise. Lena and Miro climbed to the top, brushing snow off the main console. The system was damaged but fixable. As Lena worked, she began transmitting a message to Earth. Short, direct, and urgent. This is Dr. Lena Ross, survivor of Outpost Echelon 6. We were attacked by an unknown alien force designation, Saralon. Commander James Carter led the defense. He stayed behind and sacrificed himself to stop the enemy. We are alive because of him. They thought no one would come, but someone did. And he saved us. She pressed send. The message flashed out into deep space. They waited, huddled together in the cold, the wind howling around the tower. A few hours later, the console beeped. Earth had received the message. Help was on the way. Days passed. The rescue ship arrived through the clouds, large and silver, hovering above the ice like a promise. The survivors were lifted aboard, wrapped in warm blankets, surrounded by lights and voices. But Lena didn't look back until the very last moment. Far below, the crater where the signal core had once glowed was now sealed in frost, silent, buried. Goodbye, James, she whispered. The ship turned and flew into the stars. Echelon 6 disappeared behind them, but the memory of what happened there would never be forgotten.